Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Marilyn Townsend, and I would like to introduce Dana Pellebon, running for Dane County Executive. As we begin, I would like you to give an opening statement as to the educational, vocational, and civic experience you have, which qualifies you for the office, and why you are running for Dane County Executive.
Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Dana Pellebon. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. So let me give you a brief introduction of my employment background. I spent 20 years about doing housing. Started in housing back in 1993 and worked my way up through a commercial real estate firm to manage up to about 5,000 units in South Central Wisconsin. And did the budgeting, strategic planning for those spaces. After about 16-ish years doing that, I moved forward to marketing and sales for that same company and piloted their marketing and sales program. During my tenure at this organization, I did start a program that is still running today called the Second Chance Program to allow access for persons who may not have reached the rental criteria that is embedded in everyone's application. So they did an educational program, and then we added case management. So that is a really great program that still houses people today. That was started back in the 1990s by me. And then from there, I moved on to Porchlight, where I was their director of housing and operations for about 7 years. In that space, also increased access to housing by reducing barriers for persons who are unhoused to obtain housing a little bit faster. In both spaces, I have worked with a variety of affordable housing from Section 42, HUD, Housing First, so I have deep experience and background in housing. From there, I moved over to the Rape Crisis Center. I was enlisted to expand what their client services look like and expand case management for survivors here in our county. So I have been doing that for about 5 years. I am the executive director here at, we are now called RCC Sexual Violence Resource Center, where in this time period, we have expanded not just services, but we have also added CCS program and a therapeutic program that is actually meant to generate revenue because we were looking at some pretty significant grant cuts. And we are looking to, this year, we actually will be getting to a budgetary point because of these revenue generating sources that I created here at RCC. Civically, I have been on many boards throughout my time here in the county. I was on the Domestic Abuse Intervention Services Board when we built our new shelter, Urban Triage, Rural Community Center. I planned the 4 prides that started with the Magic Pride Festival. And then did the 2 during the pandemic and the first one back, where we engaged community in new ways that we had not in decades. I am a theater professional here. I've been in theater for about 20 years, including being the person that is directing theatrical programming for the new Center for Black Excellence in Culture. And otherwise, I have really just been engaged in 700 different areas here in our county, volunteered for a variety of organizations, and have deep roots in our community, not just on the executive level, but on the grassroots level, because I'm with folks doing the work.
Are there steps the county should take to increase the amount of affordable housing in Dane County?
Yes, so there's investment, and we did that on the county board. I was on the county board for the last 2 years. And this last budget cycle, $30 million was put into the Affordable Housing Fund. Now, let's be very clear, we do have housing that has been built that has not been successful. But part of the reason it hasn't been successful is that we have not been able to provide sufficient services for the folks that are in that housing. So we have the largest agency here in our county, our Health and Human Services Department, that has a variety of different programs and groups and people that work in these spaces. In addition, we have a variety of nonprofits here in our county. The POS agencies are what they call their point of service agencies that also do this work. So coordinating this work with development that is coming into spaces to make sure that we are building development that are not only environmentally sustainable, but then are people sustainable. You know, can we make sure that people are moving into safe housing and then are successful once they are in housing? And that's a lot of the work that I did at Porchlight, who, you know, we were housing folks that had a significant amount of issues. And part of how it is that we did that was concentrated case management and care and wraparound services.
How would you increase the efficiency and fairness of the Dane County Justice Department?
So I have spent a lot of time working on that these last 2 years. So there are reforms that are in place that I've been a part of. So I spent the last 2 years as one of 15 elected officials that was appointed across the nation to specifically work and examine racial disparities in our carceral system. As a part of that work, one of the things that was very important was taking a look at community court. So Linda Ketchum and I from Just Dane were co-chairs of the Community Court Committee, where that is a reform that will be put in place. That is something that is generated from the county, and it is a higher level of a restorative justice court. So for example, we visited one that was in Cook County, and we know that recidivism rates for people that go through any type of carceral system is around 80%. The rates for this court were 18%. So we are looking at evidence-based solutions to divert from the carceral system. And then also the thing that I learned in these last 2 years working with experts has been we here in our county have done an enormous amount of reforms and work. And what's left are the racial disparities. And the reason why we are seeing that is because of root causes. We have not tackled the root causes in the way that we need to focus on in order to divert people from the carceral system.
The Crisis Resource Center and expansion of the CARES program outside of Madison have been proposed as ways to address the needs of individuals with mental illnesses. Do you believe there are further actions the county should take to address mental health issues?
Absolutely. These are things that I've worked with every day and continue to work with. So one, we do need to make sure that there are enough mental health resources. One of the reasons why us at RCC had to expand our therapy program is that we had survivors that were unable to access therapeutic help. So we know that there are gaps in our system. We know that there are not as many prescribers as there used to be, and that we are losing care facilities and we are losing long-term case management. So we need to make sure, again, that the supports are in place in order for people to get the help that they need. So the CARES program is great because it decenters law enforcement response because law enforcement also does not want to be in spaces where they're not dealing with an actual law violation. Instead, we want to make sure that the people who know how to deal with mental health crises are in those spaces. And then there is a place for them to be when they are in crisis, which is why places like the Crisis Triage Center are important.
Concerns continue about noise abatement related to the presence of the F-35 fighter jets and PFAS pollution at the airport. What would you seek to do about addressing these concerns if elected?
So realistically, in the county side, we can use our voices. We can talk to people in the legislature, but that is a legislative issue that we don't have a whole bunch of control over. Now, as far as noise abatement, when we are looking at building new spaces, I will say that is not an area that I want to continue to build affordable housing in, especially when we know what the effects are of the noise on children. And so for me, it's a matter of connecting with the people that can change this issue. And as a county executive, this isn't an issue that I can change. It is an issue that I can talk about. It's an issue that I can lobby for. And it is something that I can elevate the voices of our county residents who are most impacted to say this is a problem. We did, attempt to do something on the county board about the PFAS with the airport, and there really wasn't very much room for movement because it was a DoD contract, a Department of Defense contract, and we don't have a lot of say-so in that. And so it is leaning on our legislative partners to make sure that they are carrying the word of the harm that is happening to our North Side residents in particular.
The racial disparities in Dane County are varied and widespread. What specific action would your administration do to start to unwind these discrepancies?
So we have done a variety of different studies. There are task force, there are solutions that are in front of us. So we know that we need housing, but we have tried to put housing in place without services that are continual and full, right? So knowing that the root causes are the things that are the drivers, in addition to what we know is structural racism, institutional racism. And so taking a look at our processes and making sure that they are equitable, making sure that we are not being oppressive in how it is that we are making decisions across the county, I think is vital. Beyond that, it is taking a look at food security, looking at our food deserts. How are we placing developments next to transportation outlets? What do we need for more transportation, especially as we expand out to other rural areas that are not connected to bus and transit systems? What does it look like once we have rail system through here? And how does that impact the current transportation system that we have? And how can we, again, make sure that those who are most impacted and who need those services the most have access to those services? And that is one of the ways, and again, this is a multi-layered issue, but the addressing of root causes has the most immediate effect. And we've seen that in spaces where, for example, basic income is introduced. Universal income. So those are the things that my administration would focus on, is addressing root causes to do preventive work instead of having to do remedial work on the back end.
Please describe any other priorities for your term in office and how you propose to fund them.
So my priorities are keeping our budget in line. And so really taking a look at what it is that we are doing. In addition, adding in a capital improvement plan where we are taking a look at debt that is being paid off and debt that is coming on to make sure that those stay level so that our taxes do not go up. And the way to do that is to really have a concentrated plan for growth and improvement of our facilities. beyond that, I am right now not necessarily looking at new initiatives. We have great programs here in our county. We need to make sure that they are effective, and that we are connecting with community partners in a way where we are not duplicating work and services, so that we can concentratedly work on issue by issue while being aware of how that issue interrelates with every aspect of our county. What does it mean when you have someone who is food insecure, is unhoused, and doesn't have transportation? I mean, these are three separate areas of our county, and how do we coordinate that work? That's the stuff that I do. This is the stuff that I do across the state with sexual violence, coordinating efforts for a common goal. And our common goal is a better Dane County, a more efficient Dane County. And that's the work that I want to do here.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
So the thing that I want to make sure that people know is I have 30 years of executive experience where I manage budgets, I manage people, I change programs, I create revenue. I am a small business owner. I was a part of a music venue for almost 10 years in downtown Madison. I understand not just that we have to be able to get services, but then we also have to have a balanced budget. And then also taking a look at the impacts. You know, I heard a lot from my constituents this last term about the impact of taxes. And that's why the capital improvement plan is going to be moving forward, so that we can, again, very concentratedly look at our budget holistically. And I have the experience to do that because I've been doing that work for 30 years. In addition, I have worked in the communities and with businesses and with developers for that same amount of time. So being able to walk into a space where I already have the connections, I already have the relationships built. I have worked in these county agencies, again, the entirety of my adult life here in Madison, makes this space perfect for someone that has the ability to communicate, to reach out, to also be very clear about intent, and can work across the aisle. The county jail is a really good example of that. Sheriff Barrett and I worked really hard to come up with a compromise that both funded this jail after 20 years and also included reforms to make sure that people are staying out of those spaces, and working through what prevention looks like. So again, the ability to make things happen, that is my reputation here in this county. It is, if you need something done, you give me a call and I make sure it happens. And that's what I'm going to do for Dane County.
I want to thank Dana Pellebon for speaking with us, and thank the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone that primary election day is Tuesday, August 13th, and the general election is Tuesday, November 5th. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, thank you for joining us.